Welcome everyone to the House Ag and Natural Resource Budget Committee. So I think first on the agenda will be let's work and try to see if we can get the Department of Commerce budget out. And is there any discussion? Representative.
Mr. Chair, I move we pass the Department of Commerce budget. That's how we start.
Okay. Representative Garber.
Amendment or an addition or whatever you want to call it.
Any further discussion?
No.
No.
I have to move my motion, or I have to explain my amendment, I guess I should say. In support of the 28 million funding request for to meet Kansas' responsibility as co-host of the 2026 World Cup event, I move that we support the governor's recommendation of 20 million and the remaining 8 million be funded using any combination of available funds, including SGF and or ARPA, EDIF, anything, just so we add 8 million to that 20 million for the World Cup.
Second discussion. Representative Alcala.
What we might now want to guarantee that there's going to be a funding source, not say we want to have it be SGF or any other.
And or, yes.
And or, okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Might have left the or out.
So if there's no other discussion,
I move my motion. Yep.
Okay. So those in favor of the amendment say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Thank you. Any other discussions on the commerce budget?
Mr. Chair, I have an amendment, and we can pass it out because it's lengthy. I'll let you, Sade, would you help him get the other side of the room? Yeah, find it. Mr. Chair, I would like to recommend that I'll move that we put the 14.3 million back in the community college and technical colleges budget, taking it back to Department of Board of Regents. Is that correct? Going back to, because you've taken it out you put it in commerce, or the governor put it in commerce. I'd like to put that back into the Board of Regents, and I need a second.
Representative Bloom seconded. Discussion?
Now, I have a lengthy amendment here. This is the technical amendment as it needs to be recorded, but what it does is lists out what community colleges and technical schools will get out of the $14.3 million. So there was a question.
Questions? Representative Alcala.
So the governor had originally taken it out and put it back in the commerce budget.
Yes, they took it from the, yes. The reason was they didn't understand that data was being collected by the colleges that they would like to have. And they have, I think, agreed that they can work on that the data is there. That's my understanding. And so it is there. They just hadn't seen it.
So it reflects the money, making sure that they sent the data. Is that they were refusing to share the data originally?
No, they never refused. They didn't refuse to share data. It was just assumed they didn't have it. So I think it's important that we know how things are working and whether the money is being spent appropriately. And so it's fine that they ask for the data because it is an educational institution.
Representative Garber?
Yes, Representative Duke, the 6.3 million, where's that coming from? You have 8 million and then
Yeah,
add
it is
6.3.
well, the governor's, a year ago, these schools and community colleges and technical schools got a grant of $14.3 million. And so this year, the governor took that back and put it in commerce. No, 8 million back in commerce, but my motion is that all of it go to the educational institutions.
Well, my question is, where's the $6.3 million
It's
coming from?
part of it is coming from the 14.3 million.
Just,
They had divided it.
I'm gonna get
Somebody
some,
answer that.
yeah. Could we get some clarification?
The governor put 8 million SGF in the Department of Commerce budget. So you're moving the 8 million plus 6.3 equals the 14.3
Where's the 6.3 million at right now? Where's it coming
in
from?
the SGF. It's not in the governor's budget right now.
So it's an addition.
Yes. It takes us back to the 2024 level. So it's not an addition above the legislative approved, but it is addition above the governor's budget.
Representative,
Oh, I'm sorry.
go ahead, finish.
So the 2025 budget already had that 6.3 million in there?
The governor's recommendation had the 8 million in the commerce budget. So move 8 million from commerce to regents, add 6.3, that gets to the 14.
Representative Alcala?
Okay.
So just to get clarification, this is an addition. This wasn't part of the original budget from the governor, correct?
The governor's budget had only 8. Last year, the legislative approved was 14.3. So what your action is taking the 8 from commerce, moving it to the board of regents, and then adding the 6 to get to 14.3.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. May I address Luke?
Yes.
Luke, where are we at right now on standing money for in your proposal is for 2024 or to move it 2025?
25.
But as it stands right now, nothing's going for 24.
And Mr. Chair, if I might, right now they have that money for 24. That was the same amount as they got last year for these schools. And so this year the governor decided to put it somewhere else, but I'd like it to go back.
Sharnay, would you like to do some clarification for everybody?
What's the budget? Where are we standing at now? How much have we what more additional monies have we added just so far in these last 2 votes?
You have added 8 million thus far above the governor's recommendation. The fiscal year 2024 approved amount was 14.3 million. That is not in the commerce approved amount. That is in the Board of Regents. So this would be moving it back to the Board of Regents and keeping that same funding level as fiscal year 2024.
With this money that's being allocated, when these colleges get this money, where are they going to put it to? Just everyday maintenance, schools, soccer fields?
Mr. Chair, could we have her address that?
We
Yeah.
can have Sharnay address it, or do you want, Sharnay, do you want, or do you want to come on? Okay, come on.
Thank you, Sharday. We've used this money to do business and industry partnerships. So whether it's buying a new piece of equipment, which allows us to open another section to meet business and industry needs, whether it be essentially paying for someone to go and develop the customized training with the local business that may not be for credit, or developing apprenticeships so that our students can earn a living while they're also earning academic credit. It gives us the colleges the flexibility, but that can only be used for business and industry training or apprenticeships, not any deferred maintenance, not anything else, but only working with businesses and apprenticeships.
So just Line item 14 on page 13.
Yeah, Sharday saying yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Committee, any further discussions on the amendment? It's closed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I should have read this in the beginning. I'm going to read the motion as it is going to be presented to the uh, Appropriations Committee, except for the numbers. So the motion is I move to move 8 million from the Department of Commerce to the Kansas Board of Regents for the two-year College Business, Industry, and Apprenticeships Act and add 6.3 million to this amount to restore the program to the 24 approved level to be used for the development of apprenticeships, business and industry outreach, and development of programming to meet the emerging needs of Kansas businesses, with these dollars to be divided by the full-time equivalent student, resulting in the following appropriations to each college. And this is complements what they have been doing in the past. And I move my motion. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
If there's no other discussion, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Your amendment's passed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other discussion on the commerce budget? Did someone want to make a motion to pass?
I made the
Okay,
motion to pass.
okay.
So you can call for it.
So, pardon? Yes. So, to pass out the the Department of Commerce budget as amended. All,
24 and 25.
second.
24 and 25.
24 and 25. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. It looks like
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
the Department of Commerce has been passed out. So next on the program, we're going to work House Bill 2167. I make a motion that we pass out House Bill 2167 as amended. Or we just, okay,
67 is what?
it's just that's the fees on your hunting license. Okay, thank you, Dave. That's why you're here. We need a motion to adopt the amendment.
Of what?
Let me find it. Okay. You want to?
Oh,
We had it
okay.
yesterday.
Well, it would be refreshed.
Okay. Do you want Dave to read this to you?
No,
Luke,
I
good?
think this is fine if everybody else has
Okay.
it. Everybody else is okay.
Okay. So where are we at? So you want to say something? So we're in discussion. We're just here. So wait just a second. We need a second. I guess the amendment. Amen. A second on the amendment. Jacobs. Pardon? Discussion. Representative.
Mr. Chair, I can't support this amendment. I don't support this bill. This improves the bill, but it still costs the Department of Wildlife and Parks far too much money. So I will be voting against the amendment and the bill. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Hand me that copy of the amendment. Here you go. Huh?
Does anyone need the amendment?
you just I can just read it. We're still discussing. Dave, would you like to read this for him, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, the amendments would then, well, as the bill was introduced, it was going to lower the license fee to $25. This amendment strikes that language and is going to return to the current non-resident license fees. That's on page 2 there. We're going to just reinsert that current language. So it's still going to be the 125 or 75 if you're under 16. And then on the very back of the amendment, it's now going to just be only those that don't obtain the whitetail deer permits could receive a refund of their hunting license fees, except that the department can retain an application fee not to exceed $30.
Any discussion? Representative Akala.
Could you speak into the mic, please, John?
I've gotten tons of emails over this. And so my question is what's going to be, I don't know if I was not here this day because I can't remember this in detail. Thank you. What's the total cost lost with this amendment?
Mr. Chair, I'd have to defer that to the agency. I'm not aware of that.
Secretary, would you like to come up and answer or the new physical note?
Yeah, I apologize. I don't think I was at this meeting, so I just want to know what the dent will be.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair and Representative Alcala. So the point we made the other day is in concerning this bill is the constituents don't want it. They aren't requesting it.
No, but I mean, what's the dollar loss?
And then the second point is it has a significant impact on us. And our calculations, which we just got done with this morning, are the part that we discussed the other day would be annually between $1.75 and $2.75 million that we would lose.
So that, Mr. Chair, so that amount of money, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not familiar complete with what the department does. Do you negotiate to use private land for hunting? Is that you guys?
That's part of our walk-in hunting program.
And then you guys also do repairs along the campsites, is that?
Right, that's in our parks program, right? And we have wildlife areas and yeah, so the money from this goes in our wildlife fee fund that covers wildlife fishery work, access all across the state, all those issues. Yeah.
So a lot of that will be addendum maintenance dollars that would be used, is that correct?
Correct.
Can you explain to me the negotiation of the private land for the public to go hunt on versus?
Sure. And when I get done with that, I'd like to finish because that initial impact I mentioned isn't all that would happen. I've got lucky to have my Deputy Secretary Stuart Schrag here, who's really familiar with the hunting programs, but I'll summarize it at a high level and see if that is what you need. We evaluate when a landowner is willing to sign into our walk-in hunting or walk-in fishing program, then we go out and evaluate their property and the value, how long it'll be available through multiple seasons or just one season, that kind of thing, for deer and turkey or, a variety of things. We evaluate that, and then we evaluate the quality of habitat and how close it is to urban areas where it get higher use. So that all goes in to us making an offer, and that offer can vary from, $1 or $2 an acre up clear to, I think the highest is $18 an acre. So we can pay anywhere in there based on the quality of that land and its availability to the public.
So does this also include repair on boat ramps and
Yep.
et cetera? So there's I'm just trying to see what this cut will affect, the domino effect of.
Yeah. We feel like it would have a very serious effect. And when we get to talking our budget, you'll see the kind of decisions we're making. We're already making cuts because budgets are tight. This would really exacerbate that, make it much worse. But to go beyond that initial intended effect, I would say, of this bill. I think there's also an unintended effect. We looked at the language in this bill, and this bill actually allows anybody who doesn't get a non-resident deer permit to get a refund on their license. It doesn't specify that they even had to apply for that permit. So we know that these folks are pretty cagey when it comes to that and getting money back. So they would be eligible. All those non-residents who didn't get a deer permit would be eligible for a refund under the language in this bill currently. And that amount would be, the first year would be about $8,048,000 that we'd lose. And then with the increases we're seeing every year in demand, the next year would be just over 8.33 million, and that would go up by about 1/3 million every year.
So that would be an additional, I gotta interrupt you because I don't want to lose my thought because I'm old. So that'll be an additional loss of revenue to the department?
It will total that, yeah, over $8 million. Yeah, very significant. And even the 2 to 3 million would be a lot for us because things are tight, but it'd be really more catastrophic with that larger amount under the current language of the bill.
When we negotiate with private landowners, can you give me a ballpark of usually what that costs us to do that? Is it 5 years, 10 years, 1 year?
Yeah, let me ask my expert. How many years is that for?
I wasn't aware that we negotiated that. I guess I'm not a hunter.
It's
Just basically, that's a good question, but basically, we can get it out on the budget, but the focus is just basically on the bill, but you can wait for the budget, or if it makes you happy, Secretary, you can bring anybody up you like.
I can wait. I can wait. It gives me a chance to.
It's a great program, very popular. We're the first in the nation to do it here in Kansas. We invented it. Very popular. It brings a lot of folks into the state to hunt. Yeah.
I can wait. Thank you. I just didn't know.
So, Dave, are we still on the discussion of the amendment? So, any other discussion on the amendment? And have we had a second, Dave? So those in favor of the amendment say aye. 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 Opposed?
No.
I'm going to say the ayes have it. Back on the bill. Discussion on the bill.
Yes, sir. I think maybe to address the problem with the, we're going to have some language in here, Luke. Maybe, I don't know where we'll put it, but maybe we need to specify that this is only for people who have entered the lottery and not received a license or a permit. A tag, yes, that would take care of a lot of it. You understand what I'm saying? Whoever I'm
talking to, Luke or Dave?
Whoever, Dave, I guess it is. Dave. Yeah, I'm sorry, Dave.
So, Dave, listening to Representative Garber's scenario, is there some language that will tighten this up? And that would be you make this an amendment?
I think if we put it on the fourth page, I think that would help if we put it right there where it says, any non-resident who enters the lottery but does not obtain a whitetail deer permit is eligible for this refund. Is eligible for that would save millions of dollars, correct? I mean, you wouldn't lose, you could possibly lose a lot more if that wasn't in there. Because anybody who applied
Say
for
that in the amendment, Dave.
Okay.
Oh. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I mean, currently the bill reads a non-resident who does not obtain a permit, but I think Representative Garber, it's like that would be a little more restricted. They'd actually have to enter the draw, apply for the draw, and then fail to get the permit. Yeah, so I think it'd be a non-resident who enters the draw and who does not obtain a permit. Yeah.
Okay. Do we have a second on the amendment? Okay. Discussion on Representative Garber's amendment.
Mr. Chair.
Representative.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. When Secretary Lovelace was up here, he mentioned a figure And was it $8 million that you're going to lose if this goes through to, without the amendment, it would have been less. It would be 2.75 million. Now it's how much?
Correct. That, with that amendment, it would reduce it to that, to 2.75 in that range.
The first amendment that passed. Oh, it passed.
No, this is the second
Okay.
amendment.
So we're at the 1 to 2.5 million.
Right, in that range. Correct.
You've got to realize, using these figures, almost 1.3 million of that is the customer's own dollars. You're talking about it. I mean, it's $100 and some a piece times 10,000. So
Well, the problem is, though, I understand it, is that we are not selling a hunting and fishing license. By refunding that money to them, then they do not have a license to hunt in Kansas or fish in Kansas. And we want to attract them to come and hunt and fish in Kansas, even if they don't get a deer tag. We'd still like to have them come and hunt and fish in Kansas. And if we have to refund that money, they won't have that license, and will be less motivated to get that license. And so we lose their activity coming into our state, which hurts our economy, besides hurting the wildlife and parks, because the federal money that we get is created by the number of licenses that we activate and write and sell. So we're going to lose all of those people who applied, and we aren't going to have them on our license list because they've been refunded. They no longer have a license. That's my concern. That's how we lose that money. Is my understanding.
just a sec. Just to reply to that, to solve her problem, to solve the problem she was mentioning, first of all, on the turkey out of state, this isn't a problem. But even on this situation, if there was, this is just gotta be a concept. If on the application there'd be a box that would say, I'm not coming to Kansas. I want to hunt deer or something. I just want my money back. And so that's just a thought. Let's Representative Jacob.
Chair,
What's
Mr.
the,
Chair, I believe he testified yesterday that they don't cash that money. You don't take their money.
For the permit until they receive a permit.
Okay, for the permit. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
hang loose. Representative Garber, Jacob.
Thank you, sir. I'm just looking fast forward to the work at hand. And we see in 2023, 92 million, 2024, the agency, 122 million, 2025, the agency, 121 million. And then on top of that, additional FTEs. So, I mean, we're already adding to their budget. If we just voted on this today, they would already have all of this money anyway. So what we're doing, we're just giving a discount to other individuals right now. I mean, we just passed a major budget, and that's my comment. We
On the last budget, you flipped out about 30 million.
yeah, we spend a whole lot of money. So while our people aren't making anything, I've heard key little phrases from different budget directors. Well, we have a wish list, or we have certain items that our people, honestly, our constituents, they have wish lists too. Our people are hurting. You know what? We cannot. We have to really evaluate where all this money is going. Just because they want it, we work for our people at the end of the day. And I understand but if the people can't afford to go to the parks because it's either groceries or food or whatever, gas, they're not going to the parks. You know, and I'm not trying to be that guy again, but I mean, our people are hurting bad. So,
Okay. Representative,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. But these are out-of-state people that are applying to come in and hunt and take our deer, our bucks with the antlers, our prizes. They come for the big antlers, and we're giving them a priority over Kansas people.
you are not.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, we are. if they don't have to have a license to hunt here in order to get that tag, then we are giving them a priority.
So all.
I understand that.
So, sir, go ahead when you're through.
Well, I just feel like, I feel like we're not talking about our constituents, okay? This is an economic development thing. We bring in people from out of state. They love to hunt in Kansas. I've got relatives in Los Angeles that are moving back here to hunt in Kansas. They're going to move here in 2 years.
I lived in Los Angeles.
Yeah, I would too. But but they know the hunting's good here, and they've never lived here. So I mean, people know that we have good hunting, and we have the opportunity, and we have the space, and so they're coming here to do that. And it's very little bit, and they are not asking us to do this. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Just to follow up, they do want to come here,
Yes, they do.
and the department is saying no. We have no more deer tags to sell. That's what they're saying. That is true.
Would you like to respond to that, please?
I'd love to. So in Kansas, we allow 22,000 non-residents.
Secretary, that's just a simple question. These people, she still wants to talk about economic whatever. These people that are sending you this money, they're here, they're asking you to come to Kansas to purchase a whitetail hunting whatever. So that's what they want to do. They don't have any to sell. They don't have any more to sell to people that are being rejected. So that's what this is about. That's okay. They can keep their deer. And the people that this bill's about, if they want to keep their deer and their license stuff, these people just want their money back. They don't want to come here because they don't want to come here if they can't buy the product, enjoy the product they're trying to purchase.
Let him answer, please.
Wait a minute, Representative Garber.
Well, I'm just, yeah. So many, we can only give so many a year. 22,000 is what you're saying. That's probably, I don't know, has it been that way for quite a few
We
years?
adjusted each year some.
Very little change. And we're getting more and more applying, okay? And that's the only reason they want to come is to hunt a whitetail deer. So to say that they're not going to come if we give them a refund on their license, I don't think they're going to come anyways, because the only reason they want to come is to get a chance to hunt our whitetail deer, and they're not getting that chance because we only give so many. And I understand that, I think, because we don't want to have too many out-of-state hunters here. But so that's just my.
Siren. Huh? I'm not. Oh, I keep.
Well, maybe she's timely.
Are you timely? Go ahead. I guess.
All right. I'm probably in an area that I really do not know very well at all. So it seems to me like, so people are buying the license in order to be in the lottery to see if they can get one of the deer tags to come here and hunt deer. If they're in the lottery and they don't win the lottery, then they can still come and hunt. They just can't hunt. They just don't have the tag to hunt deer, but they can still come and enjoy our parks and wildlife and everything.
Hunt a doe.
Oh, they can hunt a doe. Okay, so they can still do that. So it's just for a buck, right? The deer tag is just, and there's, you said 22,000 a year. So like two things come to mind to me. Like, okay, we have 22,000. And if we run out, like if there's more demand than there is that 22,000, okay, we do the lottery system, but we could do first come, first serve. And then, you've bought all three and you've got them. So there is no lottery. On the other hand, I'm thinking, okay, when you play the lottery, up front, that is a game of chance. And you are taking a chance that you're going to either win or you're going to lose. So if we're going to refund these out-of-state hunters, I'm thinking maybe we should amend this to include the lottery. Maybe we should refund the people that buy a lottery ticket and they don't win. It's kind of the same thing.
And we do a little better because when they don't receive that permit, they do get a preference point, which really increases their chances of getting a permit the next year.
Okay, so they do by participating in that 1 year and they keep, so then they do get kind of a bump for that, then that next year.
One thing I also might add, Representative Jacobs was talking about listening to our constituents, and we talk with them all the time. Importantly, as I mentioned the other day, these non-residents are not complaining to us. We advertise right up front. If you don't draw, you're still going to keep that license, and they don't complain to us. The other thing that's important, we've been meeting with our guides and outfitters in the state for about 3 years, trying to learn what they're thinking and work better with them. And they've brought up multiple times, at least 3 I can recall, you should increase your fees on non-residents, okay? You should increase your fees on non-resident. And their logic was, we didn't ask that question. They just told us that because they said that it's small enough in their overall cost to come to Kansas and hunt that it's not significant to them. And with that money, they knew our budgets are tight. They would like to see more law enforcement presence across the state. And so they said, you could put that money in more officers, and that would benefit us and our businesses. So that's our guides and outfitters that have told us that.
Now that you, excuse me, now that you put me behind somebody else, I guess I'm going to take this. Anyway, thank you, Mr. Chair. Brett, that's got good questions and a lot of good conversation here. How do you pick those licenses? Because I got a question after, my hunters come from Texas, Oklahoma, and different places. And I branded all to one outfitter that's been with me for 20 some years. How do you pick the numbers that you choose? Do you pick them in different groups or areas or what?
So yeah, it's divided up between our different units. We manage each unit independently because the populations vary. And so then, but within that, it's a pure lottery, whether or not you put in your application on the first day when it was open or the last day, everybody's in that pot and they get picked randomly, except for if you have a preference point, like I mentioned before, then you're at the front of the line. You get first choice. And once we give out all those that have preference points in that unit, then we go to the people who don't have points on that lottery basis.
Now, when you say points, you mean that they didn't get picked last year?
They didn't get it last year. They got a preference point, and so now they're at the front of the line for the next year.
The question I got then, help me understand this, because my outfitter was pretty upset because he applied for only 9 out-of-state permits, didn't get any. A guy down the road that doesn't have the land to hunt on, he just turned in a whole bunch of permits. Now, I don't know if this is true or not. You and I was going to talk about some of these things, but we didn't get a chance. So he claims he applied for 90 permits and got 70. And my hunter applied for 7 or 9 and didn't get any. And that was the trouble with his. They said they're not going to take that risk of trying to spend that money to come back next year. So in answer to your question, it kind of hurts because they do spend a lot of money. They spend a lot more money in our little town than the permits are, but they're not coming back because they were upset. I don't know. I need to answer that. How do I answer that to my constituents?
I'd be glad to work with you on the details around that, but about 70% of our applicants are successful. So if he was 0 for 9, I can't explain that run of bad luck because that's highly unusual. I mean, a person came to our commission meeting the other week. He said he had friends from North Carolina that had come for 19 years in a row. They drew, the draw's only really been competitive about the last 5 or 6, but he said they drew all those years in a row until last year was the first time out of 20 years where they didn't draw. So it's a game of chance unless you have that point, which an awful lot of our non-residents have, to put you at the front of the line.
So again, in a situation like that, if this scenario is the guy that applied for 90 and pays for his hunters because he charges them a lot more than ours do, can he just apply for 90 even though he doesn't have a place for him to hunt? And if he gets 70, he's still got a pretty good income and then he sells them. Can he do that?
So those individuals would have to apply, but some outfitters will say, I'll manage. And we've got a very experienced outfitter here that can talk about how they do that. But some of those manage for their hunters. They say, we'll help you apply to make sure you do everything right. But it still has to be an individual applying, an individual non-resident applying for each one of those.
Okay, thank you. Still like to talk to you.
Yeah, good. I like that.
Mr. Chair, Representative asked you something about how it worked. I'm still confused. You say they're in the front of the line, but I'm hearing the word lottery, which sounds like drawing out of a hat. So how do they actually get selected?
Yeah, so if you're a non-resident, you put in for a permit last year and you didn't get it, we'd say, sorry, you didn't get it, but you get a preference point. We're going to keep that license money you paid for Kansas, still come and hunt birds and hunt a doe, but we're going to keep that money. But for that, you get a preference point. So next year, you go to the front of that line for that unit.
Where's the line?
So if we have 1,000 permits in your unit, right? The people who have preference points can start at permit number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 till we run out of hunters with preference points.
You work from a list with preference points.
When people have a preference point, right? We know that and they apply for that unit, so we put them right there. And then for the ones that are left over after all those preference points that we promised are given out, and those people get their permits, then the remaining ones go in a true lottery for the remaining permits in that unit. Yeah, exactly. Trying to be fair. Yeah.
We're just going to say 20,000. We gave out 20,000 permits last year. Okay, 10,000 more applied again. Next year, those 10,000 will get there, and 20,000 more apply, so only 10,000.
Right. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But I thought he said that his people year after year didn't get them, and that shouldn't be true. It should not be true. That's why I asked.
Yeah.
So, before it gets dark. So, Dave, where are we at? Are we on Mr. Amendment?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, yeah, we are on Representative Garber's motion to amend on page 4, and I want to clarify, we get the language right. Page 4, line 2 of the bill. Now, the motion to amend would be, so they would read, a non-resident who enters the deer permit draw and then does not obtain the whitetail permit and so forth.
So committee and discussing, are we ready for a vote on this amendment? Those in favor of Representative Garber's amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. So the amendment's passed. We're back on the bill. Is there any more discussion on the bill? So I'm going to make a motion that we pass. Go ahead.
I made some original motion.
Okay, go ahead.
You need to close.
Okay, close.
I need to close and move House Bill 2671 as amended.
Second.
Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay.
No.
I believe the ayes have it. HB 2167 is passed out as amended.
Yeah, me too.
Okay. Pardon?
2671.
No,
Did he
20.
say something else? Did he say it backwards? I thought he did. We know what he means.
So,
Record my vote, please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
now this will be the fun part. We've had all that. We get to work the budget. So we're going to open up the Department of Wildlife and Parks budget hearing. Luke, how's your voice today?
Still shot, Mr. Chairman.
Too much deer hunting, Luke, I'm telling you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. As you will note, yeah, my voice still eludes me, but I will do my best. I will make sure that I speak into the mic so that you all can hear me. Again, my name is Luke Drury. I'm a senior fiscal analyst with Legislative Research. I will be going over the Department of Wildlife and Parks budget for you. As you all did note during the hearing on the last bill, or working the last bill, Secretary Lovelace is here with us today in committee, and we'll be able to address the committee and answer any other questions that you all may have. Beginning on page 1 of the budget analysis document that you have in front of you, this would be a standard document that you all have seen before. The first table there shows operating expenditures by funding source for actual 2023, 24, and 25. The Department of Wildlife and Parks is a cabinet level agency administered by the Secretary of Wildlife and Parks. The Secretary is appointed by the governor and subject to confirmation by the Senate. The Kansas Wildlife and Parks Commission is a 7-member board appointed by the governor and serves in an advisory role to the Secretary. The Commission has the authority to approve the agency's rules and regulations. The Secretary of Wildlife and Parks and the Assistant Secretary for Administration are located in the Topeka administrative offices, while the Assistant Secretary for Operations is located in Pratt. The agency is administered by staff in the Topeka office, while field operations are managed from the Pratt office. I will begin my presentation on page 5. On page 5 of your budget analysis document, expenditures and financing table up at the top will show you a little bit more detail in regard to expenditure category, along with different financing utilized by the agency. I would note that this is one of those agencies that does utilize a litany of different funds. That does include the General Fund, Economic Development Initiative Fund, and State Water Plant Fund as some of those appropriated funds. Major fee funds that the agency utilizes are the Parks Fee Fund and the Wildlife Fee Fund. Below that table, you will see an examination of state general fund expenditures dating back to FY 2016. From FY 2015 to FY 2019, the agency had no SGF expenditures. In FY 2020, the governor recommended and the legislature approved $2 million for emergency park repairs after the spring 2019 flooding event. The agency expended $1 million of that amount in 2020 and roughly $950,000 in 2021. The agency had no SGF expenditures in 22 or 23. For FY 2024, the governor recommended and the 23 legislature approved $2.5 million SGF for one-time dam repairs. The agency's revised estimate makes no changes to that SGF amount that was approved by the 23 legislature. For FY 2025, the agency is requesting $200,000 general fund as a state match to leverage federal funds for the land purchase in Jewell County. That prospective land is adjacent to the Lovewell Wildlife Management Area in Jewell County. When we flip over to page 6, for FY 2024, the governor is recommending increased SGF expenditures totaling $3.2 million, including $3 million as a matching fund for the Flint Hills Trail System and $200,000 to replace the shower house at El Dorado State Park. For FY 2025, the governor recommends the $200,000 SGF as a state match to leverage those funds. Leverage federal funds to purchase the land in Jewell County. We will talk about those items in more detail later on in the budget analysis. There rests on page 6 is an examination of the Parks Fee Fund. This would be a table that you all again are familiar with. The left side columns, or green, represent revenues into that fund. The right side columns, or red, represents expenditures from that fund, while the yellow line that traverses those columns represent ending balances. I would also note that the ending balance is simply just a snapshot in time. So that is to say that as of June 30 in any given fiscal year, that's what the ending balance was in that fund. I would also note that ending balances also include encumbrances, not just expenditures. The Parks Fee Fund is the depository for monies that are received from state park permit fees, tolls, rentals, and charges derived from the use, lease, or operation of state parks. The department establishes fees for the use of the state parks through rules and regulations, and those are reviewed by the commission. In 2024 and for FY 2025, expenditures are estimated to exceed revenues for the Parks Fee Fund, and that will reduce the ending balances to roughly $77,000 for FY 2025. From 2021 to 2023, the Parks Fee Fund experienced average expenditures totaling about $12.8 million per year, while revenues to that fund averaged 13.2 million. The agency's revised 24 request from the Parks Fee Fund totals 16.2 million in expenditures, which is an increase of 3.4 million or 26.9% above the agency's 3 years average. On average, from FY 2021 to FY 2023, the Parks Fee Fund has received roughly $500,000 more into the fund than has been expended. So that is to say that roughly the agency has brought into the fund just about the same amount that it has expended each year over the last 3 years. The governor's recommendation to the agency includes adjusting expenditures from the Parks Fee Fund for both fiscal years. The governor also revises estimates into the fund. The governor's recommendation reduces expenditures from the fund by roughly $911,000 or 5.6% in FY 2024 and $610,000 or 3.8% for 2025. The governor's recommendation also increases revenues estimates by roughly $150,000 in 2024 and 2025. And I will discuss these decreases in the Parks Fee Fund as recommended by the governor a little bit later on in the budget analysis as well. When we flip over onto page 7, as an examination of the Wildlife Fee Fund. Up at the top of the page, same as the Parks Fee Fund. Left side green is revenues. Right side red is expenditures. The yellow through line is ending balances. The major sources of receipts for the Wildlife Fee Fund are the sale of hunting and fishing and trapping licenses. The fees to be collected from the issuance of such licenses are established by the Wildlife and Parks Commission through the approval of rules and regulations submitted by the Secretary. In FY 2024 and FY 2025, expenditures are estimated to exceed revenues for the Wildlife Fee Fund, which reduces the ending balance to 6.1 million. I do apologize for the typo there. For the Wildlife Fee Fund for FY 2021, FY 2023, expenditures averaged 34.6 million per year, while revenues averaged 33.7 million. The agency's revised FY 2024 request from the Wildlife Fee Fund totals 46.5 million in expenditures. That's an increase of 11.9 million or 34.4% above the agency's 3 years average. Over the last 3 years, on average, the agency has expended more monies from the Wildlife Fee Fund than it has received into the fund. The governor's recommendation also adjusts expenditures for the Wildlife Fee Fund in both fiscal years. She also revises revenue estimates into the fund. The governor's recommendation reduces expenditures from the fund by 5 million or 10.8% in FY 2024 and 2.4 million or 5.4% for 2025. The governor's recommendation also increases revenue estimates by 3.8 million in 24 and 6.7 million for 2025. So that is to say that the governor's recommendation for both of the major fee funds utilized by this agency is to reduce expenditures in those funds. And then the recommendation also includes increased revenue estimates into those funds, as opposed when comparing to what the agency submitted. When we flip over to page 8, there's an examination of the 2024 budget. The table up at the top would be familiar. Again, same format. So that is to say that the first line you see there is the amount approved by the 2023 legislature. Each one of those lines then is numbered, and that then corresponds with the narrative explanation down below. Subsequent to the 2023 session, there was one adjustment that was made to the 112.9 million, including 2.5 million general fund appropriated to the department for 24. That adjustment changes the current year approved amount without any legislative action required. Item number 1 is EDIF reappropriation. The agency reappropriated roughly $138,000 from the EDIF from FY 2023 into FY 2024. The agency's request for the 24 revised expenditures totals 122.1 million, including 2.5 million general fund in 24. This is an increase of 9.1 million or 8.1% above the 24 approved amount. The revised estimate includes 464 FTE positions, which is an increase of 7 FTE positions above the 24 approved number. The revised estimate includes 7.1 million, all from special revenue funds for the following supplemental requests. Item number 2, Lehigh, Little Jerusalem, Canopolis, and Clinton State Park projects. The agency is requesting 3.5 million, all from the federal ARPA funds for capital improvement projects at Lehigh, Little Jerusalem, Canopolis, and Clinton State Parks in 2024. Item number 3 is the Flint Hills Trail Grant and Match. The agency is requesting $3.3 million. Flipping over to page 9. That includes $300,000 from the Parks Fee Fund and $3 million from the Federal Highway Planning and Construction Fund to continue development on the Flint Hills Trail in FY 2024. The agency indicates that a federal grant totaling $3 million was recently awarded to the Parks Division, and the federal grant will need to be added to the agency's budget in 24 for the funds to be expended. The agency also requests an increase of $300,000 in expenditures from the agency's Park Fee Fund, and that would be used to provide as a state match for the grant in 2024. El Dorado State Park Shower House. The agency is requesting $200,000 all from the Parks Fee Fund to replace the shower house at the El Dorado State Park in 2024. The agency notes that an increase in expenditure authority would be required for the agency to replace the shower house. Item number 5 is Lehigh State Park position. The agency is requesting roughly $111,000 all from the Parks Fee Fund and 1 FTE position in 2024. The request would allow the agency to hire 1 full-time equivalent position for the newly created Lehigh State Park that is located in Allen County. Absent those supplemental requests, the revised estimate includes an increase of $2 million in base budget expenditures, with those significant adjustments are as follows. Item number 6, salaries and wages. The agency's revised 2024 estimate includes increases in salaries and wage expenditures totaling $2 million, all from special revenue funds. That increase is primarily attributable to increased estimates for employee pay and fringe benefits. The agency's request also includes the addition of 6 FTE positions, which includes 1 FTE position for the administration program, 4 FTE positions in ecological services, and 1 position in the parks program. Item number 7 is all other adjustments. I like to call these ones the sort of the rats and cats of an agency budget. All other adjustments made by the agency result in a net decrease of roughly $13,000, and all from special revenue funds. The agency is estimating lower expenditures for capital improvements in 2024, which are partially offset by increased estimates for some contractual services. The governor's recommendation for FY 2024 includes expenditures of $119.2 million, including $5.7 million SGF. That recommendation is a decrease of $2.9 million, or 2.4% below the agency's 24 revised estimate. The governor recommends adding $3.2 million general fund for 2 agency supplemental requests, along with adjusting the funding mixes for those supplemental requests. The governor also recommends reducing fee fund expenditures by $5.5 million. And finally, the governor does not recommend the agency supplemental request of roughly $111,000 general fund and 1 FTE position for the Lehigh State Park in 2024. The governor's recommendation includes the following adjustments. Item number 8, that Lehigh State Park position is not recommended. The governor does not recommend adoption of that agency enhancement request. I would note, though, and we'll get there for 2025, it is not recommended for 24. The governor is making a recommendation similar for FY 2025 to include some funding and FTE positions for Lehigh State Park. Item number 9 is the Flint Hills Trail Grant and Match. That is a modification. The governor is recommending a modified version of the agency supplemental request to continue development of the Flint Hills Trail in 2024. The governor recommends $6 million from all funds, including $3 million general fund for the project. The $3 million from the general fund would represent the state's portion for the entirety of the project. The recommendation retains that $3 million, flipping over to the next page, from the Federal Highway Planning and Construction Fund, while deleting that $300,000 as requested by the agency from the Parks Fee Fund. That deletion of Parks Fee Fund is due to the addition of the general fund. Item number 10, the El Dorado State Park Shower House. Again, this is a modified recommendation from the governor. The governor is recommending a modified version of that request, essentially swapping out the agency's request from Parks Fee Fund with general fund. So still to fund the project, but with general fund as opposed to fee funds. Item number 11, those fee fund adjustments that we briefly discussed earlier in the presentation. The governor is recommending reducing expenditures across several agency fee funds by $5.5 million. That includes $5 million from the Wildlife Fee Fund, $300,000 from the Parks Fee Fund, and $130,000 from the Wildlife and Parks Non-Restricted Fund in 24. Those adjustments would more closely align expenditures and revenues to those funds. Mr. Chair, I can stand for questions or I can continue on. Mr. Chair, I can tell you that taking a drink of water is not going to help. This voice is just shot. Mr. Chair, if it's all right, I would like to talk on page 11, the change from 24 actual expenditures first. The agency is estimating revised expenditures of $122.1 million, including $2.5 million general fund in 24. This is an increase of $29.2 million or 31.4% above the agency's FY 2023 actual expenditures. Of that increase, $29.2 million of that increase of 29.2 million, 19.2 million, or 147% above the FY 2023 actual expenditures is for capital improvement and projects. Major changes for capital improvement projects include fish and wildlife maintenance, wetlands development, shooting range development, and dam maintenance. Included in the agency's estimate for dam maintenance is that $2.5 million general fund that we discussed earlier that was appropriated by the 23 legislature for one-time dam repairs. The agency also submits several supplemental requests totaling $7 million, all from special revenue funds for capital improvement projects. The agency's 24 revised estimate also includes increased estimates for salaries and wages expenditures when compared to 23. The increase is partially attributable to pay for increases approved by the 2023 legislature and the transition of agency law enforcement officers to the Kansas Police and Firemen's Retirement System, KPNF, in 2024. Previously, those law enforcement officers had been members of the standard KPERS, Kansas Public Employees Retirement System. I would note that the employer contributions are higher for KPNF members than for traditional or standard KPERS members. So the agency's revised 2024 estimate also includes an increase of 8 FTE positions when compared to FY23 actual FTE positions. The agency's estimated expenditures from the parks fee funds total $16.2 million in 24. That's an increase of $3.7 million or 29.9% above actual expenditures from the fund in 23. The agency is also estimating expenditures from the wildlife fee fund totaling $46.5 million in 24, and that is an increase of $10.8 million or 30.3% above actual expenditures from the fund in 23. For both of those funds, the primary source of increase over actual expenditures is for salaries and wages. When we flip over to page 12, that's where the FY 2025 budget analysis begins. Again, the table up at the top is standard and will look familiar. The first line there is the agency's request without major changes. And then from there, each line item is then numbered, and that then corresponds with a narrative blurb below. The agency's request overall expenditures total $121.2 million from all funding sources, including $200,000 from the general fund for 25. That request is a decrease of roughly $927,000 or 0.8% below the 24 revised estimate. The decrease is partially attributable to reduced estimates for commodities for FY 2025. These decreases are partially offset by agency enhancement requests and increased estimates for capital improvement projects. The request includes 465 FTE positions, which is an increase of 1 FTE position above the revised estimate. The request does include $1.4 million from all funding sources, including $200,000 from the general fund for several enhancement requests. Item number 1, the agency is requesting $800,000, including $200,000 from the general fund, to purchase a parcel of land that is adjacent to the Lovewell Wildlife Management Area in Jewell County. The agency indicates that the SGF portion of the request will be used as matching funds for federal grant funds to acquire the property. Item number 2 is the Flint Hills Trail and grant and match. The agency is requesting $3.8 million, including $300,000 from the Parks Fee Fund and $3.5 million from the Federal Highway Planning and Construction Fund to continue the development of the Flint Hills Trail. That is an increase of $500,000, all from federal funds, above the agency's request for the same purpose in 2024. Item number 3 is the Lehigh State Park positions. I said we would discuss this a little bit later on. The agency is requesting $215,000, all from the Parks Fee Fund, and 2 full-time equivalent positions in 25. That is an increase of roughly $103,000 and 1 FTE position above the agency's request in 24. The agency's request in 25 would include maintaining that 1 position and funding from 24, while also hiring an additional position. Flipping over to page 13 then. Absent those enhancement requests, the request does include a decrease of 1.8 million in base expenditures when compared to 2024. Significant adjustments are as follows. Item number 4, those EDIF reappropriations. As noted earlier, the agency rolled over some EDIF money, roughly $138,000 from 23 into 24. The agency is estimating expending those dollars in 24 and therefore not carrying them over into 25. Item number 5, commodities. The agency's FY 2025 budget includes a decrease of commodity expenditures totaling 1.4 million. The agency is estimating lower expenditures relating to motor vehicle parts and other supplies and materials in 25 when compared to 24. That decrease is mostly found in the agency's park and fish programs. Item number 6, Lehigh, Little Jerusalem, Canopolis, and Clinton State Park projects. The agency's revised FY 2024 estimate had included 3.5 million, all from ARPA funds for capital improvement projects at Lehigh, Little Jerusalem, Canopolis, and Clinton State Parks. The agency estimates spending those monies in 2024 and does not estimate carrying those balances into 2025 for the same purpose. I would note, though, that decrease, I'll talk about it a little bit more in item number 9, a few items down. Item number 7 is dam maintenance. The 2023 legislature approved 2.5 million general fund for one-time dam repairs for the agency in 2024. The agency is estimating to spend those monies here in the current year and not rolling that forward into 2025. Item number 8, that El Dorado State Park shower house. The agency's revised estimate had included that supplemental appropriation to replace the shower house at El Dorado. The agency is estimating spending those monies in the current year, not rolling those into 25. Item number 9 is those other capital improvement projects. The agency is estimating increased expenditures for other capital improvement projects totaling 5.9 million, including 2.8 million in federal ARPA funds for FY 2025. Specifically, the agency is estimating increased expenditures for parks maintenance in 2025 when compared to 2024. The increase in expenditures for parks maintenance is partially offset by decreased expenditures for fish and wildlife maintenance and cabin site preparation. So that is to say that while the agency is estimating decreased expenditures for that Lehigh, Little Jerusalem, Canopolis, and Clinton State Parks specifically, the agency is also increasing estimated expenditures for other capital improvement projects, which would include parks maintenance as a whole for all the, I believe it's 27 state parks off the top of my head for the rest of the state. So that's how those are related. The governor is recommending expenditures totaling 118.1 million, including 200,000 general fund. That request is a decrease of 3.1 million or 2.6% below the 25 agency request. The governor's recommendation includes 2 agency enhancement requests and partially adopts another agency enhancement request for 25. The governor is also recommending reducing fee fund expenditures by 2.8 million in 2025. Those reduction in fee fund expenditures I'll discuss a little bit more, but it is related to those wildlife fee fund, parks fee fund, and the non-restricted fund. The governor's recommendation includes the following adjustments. Item number 10, the Flint Hills Trail and Grant. The governor is recommending a partial adoption of this request. The governor is recommending 3.5 million, all from the Federal Highway and Construction Fund to continue development of the Flint Hills Trail. That recommendation deletes $300,000 from the Parks Fee Fund, since the governor's recommendation for 2024 includes that 3 million SGF that would count for the full state portion. So the governor is recommending only the federal funds, deleting the Parks Fee Fund for that for 2025. When we flip over to page 14, page 14, item number 11 is the fee fund adjustments. The governor's recommendation includes reducing expenditures across those fee funds by 2.8 million. That includes 2.4 million from the wildlife fee fund, 310,000 from the parks fee fund, and 115,000 from the wildlife and parks non-restricted fund for 2025. Those adjustments made would more closely align those expenditures from those funds with projected revenues. Mr. Chair, I would also note that page 15 is the supplemental and enhancement request table. Again, I'll note for the committee, I like this table a lot. It will show you what the 2024 supplementals and enhancements are as requested by the agency. They're in that middle column, and then the governor's adjustments or what she recommends for those same purposes. So that gives you a really quick and easy side-by-side of what was recommended versus what was requested. I would also note then, Mr. Chair, that on page 17 is an examination of program overview. This is one of those agencies that has a number of different program areas. That table on page 17 will show you estimated expenditures and recommended expenditures by agency program, along with FTE by agency program. As you flip through the rest of the document, you will see more details specifically about those program recommendations and expenditures. When you flip over to page 34, though, is the agency's capital improvement projects. I would note that these capital improvements were heard in the Joint Committee for State Building and Construction, and that committee does approve the agency's capital improvements for both fiscal years 2024 and 2025. The agency is requesting revised 24 capital improvement expenditures of $32.2 million. Again, this is on page 34. That includes the $2.5 million general fund. That is an all funds increase of $6.9 million or 27.4% above the approved budget. And that increase is attributable to some of those supplemental requests that we talked about earlier. And those items include the El Dorado State Park Shower House, $200,000, Flint Hills Trail grant and match, the $3.3 million, all from special revenue funds. Flipping over onto page 35, that Lehigh, Little Jerusalem, Canopolis, and Clinton State Park projects, again, $3.5 million, all from federal ARPA monies. The governor is recommending a total expenditures of $39.2 million, or 32.9, apologize that, I had a little bit of a transposing moment. 32.9 million, including 5.7 million general fund for capital improvement projects in 24. That is an increase of roughly $711,000, or 2.2%, including an SGF increase of 3.2 million, or 128% above the agency's revised estimate. That SGF increase is attributable to the governor recommending adoption of that modified enhancement request. As you will note, she is recommending $6 million for that Flint Hills Trail and Grant Fund, including $3 million general fund that would represent the entirety of the state portion. The recommendation retains that $3 million from the Federal Highway Planning and Construction Fund, while also deleting the $300,000 from the Parks Fee Fund. In addition to that, the governor is recommending that the agency replace the shower house at El Dorado State Park. However, she is recommending that that be done with general fund as opposed to Parks Fee Fund. The SGF increases are partially offset by the governor recommending a total of $4.2 million, all for special revenue funds for fish and wildlife maintenance in 2024. As we discussed earlier, that is part of the overall reductions in wildlife fee fund expenditures. So that recommendation reduces expenditures for capital improvements by $2 million below the agency's revised request. Again, that would then more closely align expenditures from that fund with estimated revenues. For 2025, the agency's capital improvement expenditures are totaling $3.2 million, including $200,000 from the general fund. That is an all funds increase of roughly $1 million, or 3% above that 2024 revised estimate. The increase is primarily attributable to increased estimates for park maintenance, as we discussed a little bit earlier. Those increases are partially offset by reductions in other capital improvement areas, including that one-time money for Lehigh, Little Jerusalem, and Canopolis in 2024 that are not reoccurring in 25. The governor is recommending expenditures totaling $31.4 million, including $200,000 general fund for capital improvement projects. That is a decrease of roughly $1.8 million, or 5.5% below the agency's revised estimate. The governor is recommending one agency enhancement request and partial adoption of another. The governor is recommending the match for the federal grant. That's $800,000 all funds, $200,000 general fund. She is also recommending the Flint Hills Trail and Grant at $3.8 million for special revenue funds. The governor is also recommending, the governor is recommending $3.5 million, all from the Federal Highway and Planning Construction Fund to continue the development of the Flint Hills Trail. That recommendation again deletes that $300,000 from the Parks Fee Fund, again, because the general fund in 2024 would make up the entirety of that project. When you continue on to page 36, the governor is recommending $4.3 million, all from special revenue funds for fish and wildlife maintenance in 25. That is a decrease of $1.5 million from the agency's estimate. Again, that is part of the overall reductions in expenditures as recommended by the governor for Wildlife Fee Fund for 2025. I would also note for the committee that on page 36 and to the end of the document is an examination of those specific capital improvement projects, what they do, what each one of those buckets do, and those estimated expenditures for each one. Mr. Chair, I can stand for questions, or as I indicated as well, Secretary Lovelace is here with us today and will be able to address the committee at this time.
Committee, do you have any questions? we'll get the secretary up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you.
Secretary, would you like to just kind of continue it if you have questions, I guess?
I would love to do that if I could. I've been around to visit with most of you, and it gave you kind of a little packet summary. First, has a very flashy annual report, which the chairman recommended that we make. Very nice. And also a marketing report to list a lot of our marketing activities for the agency to try to attract resident and non-resident participants in our outdoor recreation. What I tried to do with the packet that I handed out to you was a couple of significant things. I have a little narrative here of kind of how we see our budget and what we're trying to accomplish. But for starters, Luke just went through his explanation of our budget, and in the packet I gave you, and I'll email this out to each of you tonight. Luke has seen this, and the budget office has seen it. This packet is kind of important, this 2-pager, because it is the same information, the same categories of information that Luke included on his pages. I think it was 6 and 7 in his budget. When you look at his, it uses a accounting program called IBARS, and it's a very valid program, but it's not the one we use daily because, as Luke mentioned, it counts encumbrances like they've already been spent, and basically doesn't budget the way we normally budget to be meaningful. So you'll look at these accounts. The wildlife fee fund balance goes back, if you look till 2019, and it shows prior to COVID, our budgets were up around $20 million. And then we had a COVID bump in 21, 22 that we knew would come down from, and we have. But what we want to point out with that is we budget just like you budget at home. When we know that our revenues are going to come down, our expenses are going to go up, we know we have to tighten our belt. The same thing I think you'll see reflected in the park fee fund budget passed. It was actually lower in 19 and 20 and around $3 million with those ending cash balances. And again, this is the real-time data that we use day in and day out. And then it went up with that COVID bump and is coming back down, but they've still maintained it at higher levels. About $5 million is where we anticipate ending this year. So we feel like what that indicates is we have a healthy balance. But when you look at the narrative that I passed out, you'll see the reason for that is because after the COVID bump, we knew things would come down. So we have slowed down some costs for repairs. Goods and services continue to climb. I mentioned in here that the kind of remarkable increases in utility use in our parks, both water and electric, and also utility cost. And that's absorbed. We have camping fees that haven't changed. And so we have to absorb those increases. 68% in utility use increases, bigger campers. We've switched those campgrounds. Part of our maintenance is going from 30 amp breakers like it used to be. Now the campers are bigger, 50 amp breakers are required. So we've had to go through all our campgrounds and upgrade those. So that's a cost. But then those folks are all using a lot more power and water than they used to. A lot of those campers have 2 air conditioners and they run them full blast when they're there. So the cost for that has really gone up. So we're going to have to increase those camping rates to keep up with our neighbors and then also to keep up with our costs, just cost of doing business. But so we see these costs go up. We know that salaries are going up all the time to keep qualified people. And so we've tightened our belts in a number of areas in order to compensate for that and maintain those healthy year-end balance. I listed several things in that second paragraph. planned repairs and renovations at some shooting ranges, hatcheries, toilets, boat ramps, and contracted engineering services are all things that we've had to squeeze. That we've had to increase rates for those, that walk-in hunting program that Representative Alcala was asking about. Very popular. We consider it essential because so many people come into the state to use that program. So we have to keep competitive for those, or else we'll lose acres available for people to come and hunt and fish. The thing in the third paragraph I wanted to mention was there are some things that we can just not wait on. I mentioned a couple. Our very large grant, Parks, and Linda Landerman and her crew got a $28 million grant to complete the Flint Hills Trail. But we were surprised when the federal government said, we want your $3 million match up front. Normally, we've been able to spread that out over a few years. They said we want it up front. So that was an expense that we didn't expect all at once. Also, we mentioned we're fortunate to get our law enforcement officers into KP&F last year. That's really helping our recruitment and eventually retention of those officers. But part of that deal was an unexpected $2.73 million that we were required to pay back to Capers. Hadn't been done before. We were glad to pay it if that was the cost of getting in the system, but it was unexpected. And then I also mentioned we've been delaying as long as we could our entry into Smart Cop, the state-of-the-art management system for our law enforcement officers. Allows us to do a lot of things. Our old system was old enough that they were no longer upgrading it. So it was going to quit working. So we had to upgrade to Smart Cop. That's the same one that the Highway Patrol uses. So we're happy with that, but we put off paying for that and getting into it as long as we could. But now we have to do that. I mentioned at the bottom of that third paragraph, we know we'll have to cut both projects as well as O&M expenses, and if we can't increase our revenues, then or if we lose money, like we talked about with the earlier bill, then we're going to have to continue to cut. I mentioned at the very bottom of the page that the Parks Division is absorbing those extra costs that they're incurring, but we're talking to our commission about increasing those camping rates. The thing in that next paragraph I wanted to mention, the really far-reaching economic impacts of our parks, fishery, and wildlife-related tourism. The study done in 2020 by Wichita State showed an annual economic boost that, of course, is concentrated in our rural communities of over $287 million. That's directly a result of our programs, our parks and our wildlife and fisheries programs. So it's a huge economic benefit to the state, one that we think the state would be interested in investing in. Despite being 48th in the United States in the percent of land that we own, can't we as an entity, I know the chairman came up with some information on who owns the most land in Kansas. It turns out that our agency is fourth highest behind the federal government, a private family, and then also the KDOT. And we're actually fourth in the state at 128,000 acres of land that we own. And then some say that we should just sell more licenses. But as we talked about earlier, and Representative Garber pointed out, to maintain a healthy herd, you've got to manage that. And we feel like the adjustments we make every year allow us to continue to have this trophy deer herd that causes everybody to want to come in to Kansas, like Representative Carlin also pointed out. So that's kind of our summary of where we're at, what we're doing, how we're making our decisions, to give you some insight into our business. And I'm glad to answer questions at the appropriate time.
Chairman, Mr. Lovelace, I noticed on here you got a 30% increase in wages in 2024. And I know a lot of departments that have come here, their wages are so much lower than other states. Does that put you now up where you can compete with other states?
We do that. Sometimes the governor passes and works with you all to pass one that goes across our agency. But what we have done is we evaluate where our different divisions are at and the ones that are lowest compared to their peers are the ones that we attack first. So it's kind of a constant process of evaluating and trying to pull the lowest one up to be even with their counterparts in other states. So that's exactly what we're always trying to do, is just, well, it depends. Our fish and wildlife biologists tend to stay a long time. They're very passionate about what they do. This is one of the few places they can be and do fish and wildlife biology. But law enforcement, we have challenges. Parks, I know Linda is struggling. Public lands has been a little bit of a struggle. Basically, those law enforcement agencies, those divisions we have, is a little tougher to keep people. People don't want to be police officers right now, and so the putting them in KP&F a year ago, really, we hope to help that. I just got word this morning from our law enforcement division that they had 38 applicants for some open positions we have, and we haven't had that many in years. So that's a positive sign, saying maybe those more competitive wages will help us recruit and retain employees.
It said here you give about $1 million for the land acquisition at Loveland. How many acres is that?
264. And I might point out, I have an update to that since you asked. We were trying to work that in cooperation with local folks, Farm Bureau and Kansas Kansas Livestock Association. And we have struggled to come to agreement where they're comfortable with us getting that land. Basically, our neighbor was selling out and they asked us if we wanted to buy it. We went through all the process that we have to, but our local farming partners are still wanting to talk about that. So we will not run that bill for that land at Lovewell this session. We'll do more homework and we'll come back to that. Next session is what we hope to do. So I'm glad you brought it up. That's an update on that.
The Fun Hills Trails grant, I don't know much about the trails and stuff. Is that completed? I mean, how far they want to go?
Right now, it kind of ends at Harrington, and so that's our target right now. We have hopes, and we're getting reached out to by Junction City. They'd like us to run that trail north up to Junction City. They have a lot of enthusiasm up there for it. But right now, our vision of Flint Hills Trail is to stop at Harrington right now.
Well, does it go through farms or just along roads?
So it's on the old railroad right away.
Okay.
And so it's going across, private land. And there's been a lot of neat stories, and Linda, her folks can tell you about those. We do a lot of public meetings with people to talk about that and the benefits it'll be. And the towns, those small towns, I live just a half mile south of it as it goes north of Linden. But all those towns are really benefiting. There's been a real economic boost. We have bikers and hikers from all over the world that come here to hike the Flint Hills Trail. It's like the 5th largest in the whole country. And so at 117 miles. So people are coming from everywhere to use that. So it's been a boom, particularly those small towns.
Well, if you don't get the ground, do you just do eminent domain, or what do you do?
The ground is already set aside.
So it's already bought.
We didn't have to do that. It's a long-standing agreement. So we simply have had to, maintain it, upgrade it, and maintain it so it can be usable.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And again, Linda is our expert. If you want any more detailed questions, she knows all about it. Yeah.
And I read. Well, this is on my mind. Before we get to this, can you tell me, your secretary, how many FT positions are you asking for 24, 25?
Boy, I'd have to look up. Luke could be better at answering that than me.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, on page, I apologize for that one. On page 8 of your budget analysis, that is the 2024 analysis, you will note the agency had an approved FTE count of 457 there at the very top of the legislature approved number. And then the agency is requesting to add one FTE position in 24 for that Lehigh State Park. That's item number 5 on the table. And then item number 6 is the addition of an additional 6 FTE positions as well. So that is the agency's overall revised estimate includes 464 FTE positions, and they were approved for 457 for 2024. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, page 8. Page 8, it shows you the table, and then that then corresponds with item number 5 in the table, which item number 5 can be found on page 9. In addition to that, there is item number 6, which has 6 FTE positions on page 8. The explanation of those FTE positions can be found on page 9.
Questions, anyone? Okay. So, on the travel thing that research pulled out, it looks like it's $767,000 for travel and expenses. Does
Okay.
that seem tightening the belt to you?
Um, it depends on what your point of reference is, right? We travel to professional meetings and workshops to try to further our work, and it varies. What's offered vary from year to year, and they occur. We kind of trade them around the country. A year ago, I know we hosted a deer and turkey workshop here in Kansas. So everybody came to us, and we didn't have any travel expenses for that. But generally, it's in other places around the country, and we send our staff to that so that they share information and have the most up to date information to make decisions on.
So down here towards the bottom, can you explain a private charter out of state trip for $19,000? Would be a private charter plane, but what you see that?
Yeah, I can look it up. It sometimes when we have a meeting where we have a number of folks going on it, we figure out what the cost would be if they all went separately on commercial. Back then, we had an airplane. We don't have one anymore. We sold that airplane, but we at times would take our private charter plane or one of the other state planes because ultimately we save money in going out and coming back to a location.
I understand that, but the thing that frustrates me a lot here, it's like you got the meals. I mean, there's a lot of money spent here. I figured it up if divide the number of employees by the money of travel, about $1,700 per employee for traveling. Does that seem kind of normal for a year?
It just depends on the year, what the opportunities are. Yeah, it's, I guess from my perspective, Mr. Chair, that's not a big investment in employees for them to be able to do their job at top efficiency. So going out and being able, as opposed to us having to invent every wheel here in Kansas, if we can travel, learn from what other states have done, bring that back, that it can be a very efficient way to do business. I know when I travel, and I'm part of this, that's what I go for, to try to affect policy nationally, and then to bring back information that benefits our agency.
I hear that, but I also hear our turkey numbers are down. We're maxed out on our deer numbers. Pheasant, quail, and chukar are what they are. I don't know till things kind of got better. I don't see the need to keep track. That's a lot of travel, I think. And I understand you're traveling, but the product, what you've got left, you've got plenty to sell here. You've got more to sell here than you've got hunters wanting it, either locally or out of state. Now you can't serve what you've got.
Oh,
I
I
mean, you've
disagree.
got,
I disagree.
okay, so you've got more. Give me an example.
So when we go to a conference, I'll mention one I went to with our turkey biologists a couple of years ago. Every 5 years, they have all the turkey biologists in the country come in, share information on the latest research, because we're trying to figure out what's going on with our turkey population. So they go, they discuss studies, they learn from one another, and also folks from the National Wild Turkey Federation who underwrites that. And then they come back uh, and we apply that information here. That is used to inform not only our policy, but research that we're doing. That also allows us to coordinate. So every state isn't doing research independently, but rather we coordinate with other states to try to cover all the bases, because there's plenty of things we don't understand, and our job is to figure that out and then make informed decisions about that. But I'd be glad if you want me any one year to get into the specifics of what that money bought for us and what we gained. And we can go back. Our folks, when they come back, they report on their work. These aren't golfing expeditions. They're real dull. In fact, I've been to several of them. They sit, they present papers, they stay up late at night talking about the results of their work, and then come back and apply it.
So, committee, any questions?
Yeah.
Representative.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm trying to go through the whole budget and find my questions, and I'm having a hard time getting that done. But I want to ask you just briefly on this chart. Does this include your work travel? Like, I mean, if you have to travel, I mean, is it including mileage or car use?
I think it would around the state.
Everyday work.
Yeah, with that, Luke, if you came up with it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, Representative, this would include all travel expenses made by the agency. That would include any reimbursements paid to employees who paid for travel out of their own pockets and then submitted a reimbursement form, or for the agency prepaying for agency travel for those employees. But it would be anything related to, as you indicated, work-related travel. Yes.
And also then I'm looking at it, the largest item, well, in 2018, which sticks out at you, but that's long ago. But the largest item across the board here is meals and lodging in state. That seems to me to look like more like your everyday employee cost. But is that a fact?
Yeah, that's what that would be.
So that's $500,000 right there. And I mean, out of the 700,000.
Right.
So, I mean, we do have conferences, but all of us go to conferences, and we either shouldn't go to them or we should learn a lot, because there's plenty to learn there. But this does not reflect, to me, your greatest expense is not that. It's more day-to-day work.
Oh, it clearly is, but we are spread out across the whole state. We periodically come together. I know we've got a wildlife division meeting coming up soon where those wildlife biologists gather in one place for a couple of days. They share information, update one another, just to try to be efficient and to work better together as a division. So we do have those gathering meetings periodically. I know our management team meets once a month at a location. The one thing I would point out, though, we take full advantage of the things we learned during COVID, right? We do a lot of Zoom meetings. We didn't used to do any. Now we do a lot of our meetings by Zoom, and that saves on that travel a lot.
Thank you. Another question I have, and I just see it right now, and I don't know that I remember hearing it discussed. We put, let's see, where are we on the Kansas Police and Fire retirement system? Can you just talk about that? Because I didn't read it yet.
So we had to pay a portion of it, and Linda might remember, Stuart, we paid a portion last year right up front because we had it in our budget, and then the rest we're paying this year, 2.73 overall. Okay, so we paid 1.5.
Yes.
And now we still owe that, and Sherry's agreeing? Okay, and we owe the balance in 25.
It's okay. What was it for 23 and 4?
24 and 5.
What is the total that we're
2.73.
Okay, so that's what it costs to put the employees into that system.
That's what we pay back to Capers.
And is that sound like a satisfactory thing? It's since we fought for it for so long, is it working well? I mean,
Yeah,
don't-
we were happy to get in the program, and we found out that they wanted us to pay that, even though others hadn't. We were happy to get in the program. We think it'll be a great long-term benefit.
Okay, and you're managing that okay.
We are. We
Okay,
are.
another question then.
Yeah, that's an upfront cost that we didn't plan on. Nobody could have budgeted for that. So that's a short-term impact we're dealing with.
You've got it.
Yep.
Except that we're spending a lot of your money.
Well, we didn't spend other things so we could have that money.
Okay, on number 7, page 13, the dam maintenance, how is that going? Looks like a delay.
Yeah.
And where was that dam?
So we've actually got, I think I've got a list back here, but I don't want to take time to dig it up. But I think we've got upwards of 15 or 16 dams across the state. We manage those state fishing lakes, and a lot of them have not had a lot of repairs and work done on them. So it's everything from dealing with some that are losing a little bit of material off the dam, sloughing some material that we're going back and fixing that and revegetating that, to the operational valves going in and doing those. Some of those are 60 and 70 years old, so old equipment. So you have to operate those and repair them occasionally just to make sure they're safe. And so it's a whole range of things that we're done. What we've done so far in that is we've worked with our contracting engineers to come in, evaluate those, and determine what needs to be done. And then we'll be spending that money in the near future. No, these are like state fishing lakes. If you've been to Shawnee State Fishing Lake, or we've got them scattered all around the state.
Okay, so it's amazing all the things you do. I'm amazed at all the things that are in here that you do. Tell me a little bit about the shower house.
Yeah, so that's our most heavily used state park, with over a million, over a million visitors every year. So a whole lot of use. But we have some facilities that are old. In the 30 and 40 years ago, we constructed shower houses to be more communal. That was the style back then. Everybody was happy with that. But times have changed and people want more privacy now. So in addition to that being really an old facility that would have been really expensive to try to fix, the style isn't right anymore either. So we evaluated the cost of repairing versus replacing, and you can buy these kind of whole unit replacements, and so that's more effective to bring in. So that's the cost for that.
So these are campers that use this shower.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. So that's a lot of visitors. I'm very impressed with all you do. It's just amazing that you can cover this many kinds of work.
Thank you.
With, I don't know, you've got 465 employees, is that right?
Yep.
That's a lot. That's a lot of people to manage as well.
We do hire a lot of seasonals. Those of you who have been
Yes.
around our parks realize, and at wildlife areas, we hire a lot of temporary seasonals to get through those heaviest months, and also give people experience and hopefully become employees of ours someday.
Any questions for the secretary? Any questions for anybody?
Thank you.
I'd like to talk to the range person.
Okay.
She's here, right?
We have some of our parks are there. Yeah, Linda's here. She can address any questions, and also Stuart has a lot of experience with that. So, what's your question? And we'll get the right person here.
That's correct, Chairman Corbett, yes. I'm Linda Lanterman, Director of Kansas State Parks.
So I know they're probably getting, I know there's a big demand for what you have.
There is.
So we've lost ours in Shawnee County for now.
Or what?
Our
shooting range.
They had a, what, yeah. So, is everything, in this budget, you've got someone, an FTE for each shooting location now?
That is not in this budget. We do need, uh, we need one at Fancy Creek, which is up at Tuttle Creek State Park. El Dorado State Park does need one. We've lost the one at El Dorado State Park, which has been doing it through the volunteer or that friends group. I've been paying out of the park fee fund a part-time person for Fancy Creek. We found out, match that and get funding through our shooting range grant for operations. And we have to put that into the grant and get the money. So we didn't want to ask for the positions yet until we can get that in there, but it would certainly take a load off the park fee fund because we need people up there, and I'm sure you can imagine that.
Do you kind of have, or do you kind of keep a record of, like you do your parks activities?
We do. So the one that's at Fancy Creek, we're only open part-time. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday. If we can get a full-time person there, which the individual that's working, Chris, that is working there now under a part-time basis for us, they would keep it open more. But we just don't have the capacity to do that. Same at Hillsdale, El Dorado, same way. It's just tough to hire people to do that.
Even if you're only open 2 or 3 days a week, it's nice to know that the public has a place to go.
That's correct.
So I hope you keep up the good work and try to get as much youth into it as you can find.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. So on working the budget, I'm going to make a motion.
We're going to work the budget.
You want to work it today or tomorrow?
We were doing a hearing today.
Okay, we'll work it tomorrow. How's that? Yeah, we're out of time. So we will work the budget tomorrow. And I thank you all for coming, and we'll see everybody tomorrow.